A very good morning to you from BBC One. This is our lineup today until just after midday, starting in a moment with It's My Pleasure, when Desmond Lynam invites Maureen Lipman to highlight some of her favourite television moments. That's followed at 9:30 by This Is the Day for prayer and reflection at a home in Woking. A Life of Our Own at 10 focuses on some hobbies enjoyed by a group of people with learning difficulties. Our Italian linguists say Buongiorno Italia at 10:25, and in Help Your Child with Maths at 10 to 11, the emphasis is on talking to each other. There's part 3 of the beginner's course in spoken Hindi and Urdu at 11:05, followed at 11:30 by In the Know, which looks at successful ways of learning. The Software Show at 11:40 enjoys packages which make computer music and graphics a sheer delight, and that's followed at 12:05 by See Here. We Can See Countryfile at 12:30, and viewers in Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own programmes at that time. Now, on BBC One, it's Maureen Lipman's pleasure to share some of her favourite television moments with Desmond Lynam.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. If I asked you to select your favourite bits of television of all time, I wonder what you'd pick. Well, I've put that very question to some people you will know very well, and what they've chosen and why is what this programme is all about. Now, there are those in life who seem to have mastered the art of fitting everything in. My first guest in the series is such a person. While performing in the West End, she can quite easily, it seems, write a book, complete a magazine article, make a speech, look after a husband and 2 children, appear on radio and television. She does it all quite brilliantly while retaining not only her sanity, but her sense of humour.
Do let's stop and sweltering.
5 minutes. We don't want to get left behind.
Pub's shut. Give us the water. Oh, I'm red hot, really I am. Oh. Do I look funny?
Funny? You? No, why?
It's my pleasure to welcome Maureen Lipman. Was that your first ever piece of television?
I don't think so, no. I think it was I know exactly when it was. It was 1973, and I know because I was pregnant. And I remember that hill, although it looked actually rather a sort of gentle hill, was in fact rather a steep hill. And just at the top, I began to think to myself, this is an awfully silly thing to do for very little money. And we did it, of course, 3 or 4 times. And I panicked all the way. It's funny how things like that happen in your life. I also did a radio play during the same time called Delivery, during which I had to go through all the motions of having a baby. And, you know, I'm one of those people who takes things to heart. I mean, I could easily have done it in the radio studio. And I remembered, I've never worked with Peter O'Toole before, but in fact I had worked with Ray Mort, who played my husband before. But I don't know, it was a tiny little scene, and I was doing it because I was pregnant and because, you know, there wasn't that much work about it. I was taking it easy, coming on a tandem down a steep hill.
I'm surprised you have any time at all to watch television and select clips for us. You're a busy lady always.
Yes, I don't have any time at all, and sometimes I feel like one of those gerbils in a cage going round tearing paper all the time. I feel if I could actually delegate properly, then I think I would have the time, but I've got this irritating habit to all those nearest and dearest to me of saying yes when I mean no.
You can't delegate writing.
No, you can't.
Or appearing on shows like this.
No, but you can say no. No, Mr. Lynham.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for asking me. It's such a temptation, isn't it, to do something different every time and to come along and in a way to be yourself. That's what's so nice about chat programmes and quiz shows. Being interviewed is fun, actually. Interviewing I've done once in my life on Pebble Mill. And I don't know how you do it. It is the single hardest thing I've ever had to do.
We'll find out as we go along, I guess. Yeah. But the first clip that you've chosen goes back a bit, and I must say it evokes good memories for me too, because it was sort of compulsive watching in those years. All Your Own.
Well, the thing about All Your Own was it was great living in Hull, in the middle of nowhere, and seeing that things were possible. It was possible to be something. And the nice thing about All Your Own, looking back on it now, is it was unpatronising. I mean, nowadays there are talent shows, and you have nasty, horrible people saying, well, I mean, if she changes that dress, darling, and if she changes her walk, and I mean, good God, look at that hairdo. And she can't sing either, can she, quite frankly, but do try, you know, all that. I mean, it's so awful, you know, when you think of the nerves that you go through to get on a stage. I think All Your Own was wonderful, because, I mean, it was so unpatronising, just let you get on with it.
It was normal, wasn't it?
Yes.
One thing that is sometimes not encouraged, according to the words of a song, is skiffle. And here is a song called Mama, what is it? Mama don't want me to play any skiffle? No.
Anymore.
No more.
Mama don't allow no drumming down in here. Well, we don't care what Mama don't allow. Gonna play that drumming anyhow. Mama don't allow no drumming down in here.
All drummers have the same look, don't they? They have this kind of preoccupied look. Why?
Well, you have such a lot to do that you haven't got any time to smile.
Well, what are you going to do when you leave school? Take up skiffle?
No, to do, well, biological research.
Do you? I knew that already. In fact, what do you mean by biological research?
Well, cancer, if it isn't discovered by then.
You mean be a doctor?
No, I haven't got enough brains for that, I don't think. So
Not enough brains?
No.
Well, I'm sure you have. Well, all right.
Yes.
Understood, as they say. Not at all. I think you've got quite enough brains to be a doctor. But what you want to do is to what? Research into germs.
Yes, certainly.
Do you? Now, then you want to do biological research as well.
Yes.
But not into germs.
No.
What do you want to do biological
Things a
research?
bit bigger than that. Well, into everything else but germs, near enough.
I should think we've just spoilt the day for 3 scientists with ICI who are
Absolutely.
bossing their secretaries around or something like that.
And it was rather patronising, actually, when you...
Well, it's funny you should say
I
that.
chose
yes.
the wrong word,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you steer your own children away from possible showbiz?
Well, I don't encourage it, but it sort of happens when you're in the business. People say, you know, can I use your children for so-and-so? And it's quite hard on the other children who are not the children of famous parents to get on. But I remember my daughter, when she was about 8, was asked to be in a play, Nanny, actually. She was asked to play an autistic child. And I didn't know whether she wanted it. She always said, I don't want to be an actress, I want to be a pet shop. And the desire to act came a little later, you see. So Berger-Krzyzewski, a BBC producer, rang up and said, would Amy be interested in doing Nanny? So I said, well, I really don't know, I'll go and ask her. And this little thing in its bunk, and I went upstairs and I said, it's Bernard on the phone. He wants to know if you'd like to be in Nanny, to play an autistic child, and this is what it's about. And she said, I see. She said, well, I think I better see the script. And then she said, when the man came to see her all the way from the BBC to Muswell Hill in a taxi and told her all about it, she said, I'm sorry, I only do musicals. This is a child who'd never been on a stage in his life. Anyway, she did do it, and it was absolutely charming. And my mother was her chaperone. She claims it was the finest moment of her life, really.
One of your childhood memories, when I guess you were, like the rest of us, huddled behind the sofa in fear and trepidation of Quatermass.
Oh, Quatermass, yes. Well, of course, this was the great grown-up experience, wasn't it, to stay up on a Friday night? Would it have been a Friday night?
Can't remember, really.
But what they said at the beginning of the programme was, do not watch this programme if you are of a nervous disposition. And my brother and I used to sit on the sofa, and when it came on every Friday night, we would go, as though my parents were stupid enough not to know what was coming on. And then sit there, of course, and then have the most terrible nightmares.
Sure.
But kids do. They love horror, don't they? I suppose now, if we watched it, it wouldn't be half so frightening after
I don't know. Make up your own mind in a second.
Really?
Before we begin Quatermass 2, we'd like to say that, in our opinion, it is not suitable for children or for those of you who may have a nervous disposition.
Discharged from an asteroid near the Earth, ammonid creatures are growing to monstrous size and power at the first of the steel pressure domes at Winnerton Flats. Discovery that the purpose of the vast secret plant, planned by infected human beings, is to harbor the ammonids in the recreated conditions of an outer planet, leads to an armed riot by uninfected construction workers.
Well, you laugh now, but we didn't used to laugh, did we?
No, isn't that a wonderful line? Uninfected construction workers. It's terrifying, isn't it?
Absolutely. Tell me, which do you like best? Appearing on television or in the theatre? Or...
Whichever I'm not doing is the answer to that.
I understand that, yes.
I find that I think, oh, if only I could get back on stage and do a play again. But then, of course, the thing about plays is that you go out when the kids come in. So 5:30 at night, you're a disappearing back, and you're leaving stacks of sandwiches, and a lot of guilt goes with you. Of course, the stage is fantastic once you're on it, but it is so time-consuming. And this year, I did Wonderful Town, which is a musical. I'd never done a musical before. So first of all, there's the thing of being 40 and suddenly being flung about by 6 Brazilian sailors nightly, 8 times weekly. This was something of a shock to the system, I can tell you.
Can't be bad, though, can it?
Well, it's a good way of spending your birthday, actually, being held aloft by 6 men in white uniforms, and I do recommend it to all you young people here this evening. And, of course, you know, the first day the choreographer said, well, you know, you're going to do this, and you're going to be thrown here, and then up in the air. And I used to be put on the hands of one of the sailors and put up in the air like that, and then swung from one to the other over. Now, the thing about a musical that you don't realise, it's not like a play. You see, people get injured, or they don't feel like coming in, or they've got a bad throat. And so there's one person, if it's a fairly, I won't say cheap musical, but it certainly wasn't the Phantom of the Opera. So if one chap doesn't come in, and he's this high, his place is taken by somebody who is this high. So you see the line, instead of you're lying flat across the top of these sailors, yes, you're lying with your bum up in the air like And I mean, I have not been a normal person since. I've got bumps and things in the same, because of course I'm not trained to do all that running about.
All-round good day.
It was, yes, it was a sort of winning day, one to remember.
Tell me, how's your health?
My health? Well, I'm a bit of a hypochondriac,
well, I wondered about the next clip. That's why I asked, actually.
Ah, yes. Well, I always think there's something wrong with me. And many people would agree, you see. I'm a great one for natural healing and I carry about this little bottle of rescue remedy and a tub of pills called For Fear of Oncoming Events. Well, I never use them because I'm always terrified that I won't have enough pills in case another event comes on. So I never get to use them. I'm terrified of almost anything. Plankton in the sea, you know. And I'm always thinking that I've got something wrong, some complaint, I'm hyperventilating. So I'll breathe into a paper bag if I'm hyperventilating, or, you know, I'm a bit of a panicky sort of a person. And in fact, a dentist once told me, after I'd left him, after fainting a couple of times, he said to me, you know, you're allergic to adrenaline. Well, I thought that was hysterical, since it's what I spend my life summoning up.
Yes.
Yes. And so I'm fascinated by, and I will always give people advice, you see. I go off to things like natural healing centres. I'm as fit as a flea, you might know. I couldn't do but I'm convinced that I've got something all the time, you see.
I was going to say, like most hypochondriacs, you're the picture of health.
Oh, the picture of health.
Well, for all us hypochondriacs,
yes.
we hypochondriacs, we'll have a look at this.
Good evening. Tonight we are going to the West Country, to Bristol, where they have prepared a programme for us on the diagnosis and treatment by surgery of a rare form of liver disease when its blood supply goes wrong. We know that a few people have been upset by the films we've shown before. In fact, some people have actually fainted. So don't look in for the next few minutes if you don't think you can take it. If you have the slightest doubt about this, turn down the vision in your set or look away, and I'll tell you when the film is over so that you can look in again.
Well, there you are, you see. That makes it absolutely compulsory. Everybody's glued now to the set, and you absolutely have to see it,
well, it's the forbidden thing again, like Quatermass, isn't it? You can't not watch.
I suppose exactly the same.
Around the patient, as I prepare for the incision, is my assistant, the house surgeon, a medical student, and the theatre superintendent, all of whom take important parts in the operation. The incision is being made over the lower ribs on the right side.
The reason I wanted that is because my mother loves anything. She always says, I love anything with an operation in it. Oh, I love those programs when people have things dug out of them. And it is a sort of compulsion, isn't it? You know, the sort of, the child with the operator, Desmond Wilcox, going off The Visit with that incredible series of operations with a child having his face reconstructed. And there is something even for the non-hypochondriac, I think, in watching something that, let's face it, in our lives we're never, hopefully, going to see. Although I did tell a complete joke under anaesthetic, so it is possible.
Really?
That you can wake up whilst all that is going on. Yes,
How did that come about?
Well, I mean, just that, really. I was having something done, and I had IV, you know, where they put you out through the arm, as it were.
And you're doing gags?
And I apparently said, have you heard the one about the two Jewish ladies? Now, I won't tell you the joke, because this is neither the time nor the place, but I apparently told the whole thing from start to finish and had the medics dropping instruments all over the place. So, I mean, that would be really good television, wouldn't it? Comedy while you're asleep. And so much of comedy puts you to sleep, let's face it.
Right. Have you ever been in soap opera, pure?
No, I never have, and I'm not addicted to it in any way. The only soap opera that I was addicted to as a youngster, I think we've got a clip coming up. But my children are addicted to, you know, the big ones, the Dallases and the Dynasties and all that.
And the EastEnders?
They were a bit. I think they've now gone off it a bit. They find it a bit preachy. But I find it terribly worrying. I mean, this is how they're learning the facts of life. I was always terribly worried because nobody ever told me the facts of life. And thank God, when I was about 29, I twigged. I still didn't believe it, but I had to go along with it by that time. I was married. So, no, but nobody told me anything, you see, about anything.
Now it's all very overt.
Well, you see, I decided that I would be that sort of a parent, you see. I would say, now, this is how it works, and this is what happens, and we will call, you know, a spade, and this sort of thing. And they don't want to know. The minute I start on anything like that, oh, please don't. I don't want to hear, no. Oh, look, we're watching. You know, that goes on. And so it's failed completely. You know, I thought I was being this liberal, and I remember taking the children to the Natural Science Museum when they were very small, and I remember with the dinosaurs saying, now, here's its tiny head, and here's its great big tail, you see? And my little girl said, where's its vagina? And I... because, you know, I'd insisted on the right words. And I said to an American friend of mine, she said to me, what did you call all those bits of pieces when you were, you know, to your kids? What name did you give them? And I said, I've always believed, Annie, in calling a penis and a Geneva a Geneva. Anyway.
Let's go back to Innocent Days.
Innocent Days, yes, I'm being awfully
soap opera
rude.
choice.
Yes. Well, it's compact. Do you remember Compact?
Good morning, Mr. Harmon. It's a lovely morning again.
Yes. Good morning, Mrs. Bunning. You're here very early this morning.
Oh, well, it doesn't do us any harm to be early every now and then. Good morning, Mr. Lowe.
Morning, Mrs. Bunning.
I'll have your breakfast for you in a minute. Benedict's already had his.
Do you mean you gave Benedict his breakfast?
Well, yes, dear. And I must say, his appetite for a baby...
But, what about Miss Preston? Is she still feeling unwell?
No, I don't think so, dear. She looked all right to me.
Well, perhaps I should go and have a word with her.
But she's gone.
Gone? Gone?
That's right. That's why I'm here. She rang last night and asked me if I wouldn't mind coming in a bit earlier this morning to get your breakfast. She wanted to make an early start, you see.
When did she go?
Oh, about half an hour ago.
Did she say where she was going?
No, all she said was she wanted to make the most of her day off.
Of course, I'd forgotten it was her day off.
Ooh, that's my coffee started to perk.
Well, that's a relief.
It is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Extraordinary, that manner of speaking. Soap opera delivery is... Did she say where she was going? Have you seen him? And it's the same in American soap operas. So I said to Dex, are you coming over the hill? It's always that...
Yes.
You know, why do they pause for no reason? I mean, you don't, do you?
No. I suppose they're learning it so quickly, so much of it, churning it out. You've got to keep it pretty simple.
Well, I suppose it could be struggling for lines. But I was going back to the children again. I had this conversation the other day with Amy, where she said, is somebody gay? And I said, well, yes. And she said, well, it'll probably wear off. And I said, you know, again, trying to sort of get I said, well, I don't think it is something that wears off. And she said, well, Adam Carrington was only gay for 2 episodes. So this is how they're learning about the facts of life. I find this terribly worrying.
Something totally different from soap you've chosen as the next clip for us. A spot of class, really, a touch of class.
A touch
Little
of class.
Elgar.
This was Ken Russell
at
the beginning
too, isn't it? Yes.
of his career, yes. And, you know, sometimes, like in Amadeus, the music is perfect. It's not just stuck in.
When Elgar was a boy, he spent hours on his own riding on his father's pony among the ridges of the Malvern Hills.
So much of our lives nowadays is filled with background music, isn't it, that we don't really want. And so many movies and so many plays are filled with music that isn't really right. It's just there to make you think, make you react. And they don't trust our intelligence, do they? We can do that without being told to. We don't have to hear...
Absolutely complete, that, wasn't it,
yes.
in every way?
Yes.
You write books, of course, or you've written 2
I've
books,
written 2, yes.
And does your husband actually help with the writing?
He's great for being read to. And if I get to the end of a piece and I say, can I read you this? And tell me if it sounds like me talking. And if it does, then he tells me and I go on. And that's the greatest help in the world.
That's the achievement in the book, is that you're trying to...
The achievement is just to talk on paper. Yes. And I think, really, anybody who can tell a story can write. I think there's a book in every single person. And let's face it, the most interesting people, when you look at chat shows, the most interesting person I've ever seen on a chat show was Catherine Bramwell Booth, the Salvation Army lady, who was 102, I think, when she died. And even people's stories. I'm one of those people who people tell their stories to. Perhaps not so much since I started writing, because now my friends say to me, now look, I'll tell you this about this affair, but you're not to put it in your column. People have always told me their stories, and sometimes, quite frankly, I get stuck on a bus or a train with someone, and I just think, I just like to write it straight down. People's lives are so much more interesting than the lives of people like myself who, you know, come on and talk about their lives.
On the subject of good writing, you've chosen a clip from a play that I think sticks in many people's memories. Again, I think you have a hankering after the past, don't you? Because it's black and white again.
I know, black and white and serious, isn't that the thing as well?
Yes.
Not funny.
Kathy Come Home. Carol White, wasn't it? And it was so realistic at the time.
Never seen anything like it. Really, it was faction, wasn't it? What they now call faction. Absolutely truthful, realistic, and people didn't seem to be acting, did they?
That's right. I mean, I think I remember feeling absolutely insecure after seeing it, thinking, God, that could happen to me.
To take my kids, yeah. No, I didn't even have kids then, but it was quite the most riveting thing I'd ever seen, and frightening. And the great thing about it was it changed. It changed the way people thought. And I think the laws were changed after Kathy Came Home, I believe. So, I mean, there is television as a great and powerful weapon. And that's, I think, what its great function in life and possibility is, apart from the entertainment it gives us. And let's face it, entertainment is a form of therapy. I think I cling on to the thought that comedy is a form of therapy because of the number of people who've told me, oh, you know, I felt so much better after that.
Yeah. The next clip we're going to see, you're in it. And it's one of your husband's plays.
Yes. It's...
The Evacuees. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, The Evacuees was filmed in 1974. I just had Amy. She was about 6 weeks old, maybe a little more. But I remember I was very tired. And this film was my husband, Jack Rosenthal, the writer. It was his true story because he was evacuated during the war with his brother and evacuated to a home where the lady actually, it turned out, she really wanted to break them. She didn't, it was to a little place where they never had Jewish children before. And she didn't want, in the end, she wanted to adopt them. But her way of doing it was to make them clean the house, make them do everything. They had to scrub the floors before they went to school. I mean, there are more horrific evacuation stories, and indeed, Jack and his brother tried to escape. They had one roller skate each, and they tried to escape back to Manchester. And so it's his true story. So in fact, I was playing his mother, my mother-in-law.
Hurry up, I'm tired. I want to go slopping. Don't you start German sausage. What? Spouting German, it's bad enough with her. Danny! It wasn't German, it was Yiddish. The same thing. It never is it, Mum?
All the Yiddish talk Yiddish. That's why they're Yiddish.
It's German.
So it's German. Does that make it German?
It's the Germans that are bombing us!
All of a sudden, he's anti-Semitic against the Jews.
No. You can't be anti-Semitic against the Christians, can you? What's got into the little rabbi?
He's growing. I can tell by his clothes. It's funny actually watching that because I was having a conversation with my parents this week, and my mother told me that when the first bombs came over, they all went in the gas cupboard and they spent the night in the gas cupboard with their gas masks on. And my mother's mother wouldn't let them take the gas masks off all night.
The next clip that you've picked is because of the personality of the individual.
Oh, yes. Patrick Moore. Isn't he wonderful? There's something about television, something else that I love about television, and indeed that I love about the English, is the way that it throws up eccentrics. Because if you were to interview a bunch of astronomers and pick out Patrick Moore, what can the others have been like? Don't you just love the way the suit wears Patrick rather than the other way around?
This month's Sky at Night is about the distances of the stars. And we're going to do it from a cricket field. And we're here for a very special reason. We want to do this program about the distances of the stars. And because the stars are such a very long way away, we want a good deal of space in which to operate. And so we thought the best thing we could do was to utilize a cricket field where there's plenty of room and ask some of the Homeward House boys to help us in our experiments. Well, it's all done by a method known as parallax. And I'm going to peg that out in a minute or two on the cricket field using the boys as stars. But before we do that, I think I'd better show you really what it's all about. And this is best done by means of a very simple experiment. Will you please close one eye, doesn't matter which one, and then hold up your finger and line your finger up with my nose as you see it in the television screen. Got that all right? Now, without moving anything, use the other eye, and you will see that your finger is no longer lined up with my nose. And if you keep everything quite still and flick your eyes around like that, you will see your finger apparently flashing to and fro. And the reason for that is that when you use the second eye, you're looking at your finger from a slightly different direction, because your eyes obviously are not in the same place.
Not all the time, they're not. He doesn't care whether you like him or not, which is like Robin Day in a way. It's wonderful on television if you don't like to be liked, if you're not in any way ingratiating or grovelling. He's just Patrick Moore. He's himself.
We could ask you to stand up and do your Al McCogan impression
But
all the way
you're too kind.
But we're too
and you
kind.
care too much for your audience.
So instead, you've actually chosen for us to see dear Alma herself, haven't you?
Yes. Well, it's a sort of 20 years ago that Alma died. But I think for me what she had was a kind of natural exuberance, a vivacity and a personality which shone through. Now, I didn't know about the singing when I was a child. I didn't know whether it was good or bad. Now, in retrospect, I look, and I think what I love about her singing was that it was an extension of herself. She never sort of stopped being and started singing. And that's the greatness of some singers, I mean, really great operatic singers in a way, that you feel the voice is an extension of everything about them. And it's easy. And you see, the thing about acting that people don't realise is that the moments, the best moments, and there are very few, really, with acting. Most of the time it's sweat and it's not getting, you know, it's often not getting on with the director or feeling you're miscast or feeling you shouldn't be there somehow. There's all sorts of things that stop you enjoying the job, but the best moments are when you think to yourself, my God, that was so easy. Because you're being it. You're not trying to act.
Well, Al McCogan certainly found it easy.
But this is a bit sort of stagey because it's old. I mean, but see what you think.
Kiss by kiss we'll go up to paradise. Darling, don't you know, heaven only lies in the reach of those who dare to climb up the stairway of love.
She was bubbly, and of course she didn't really get a chance to develop. I think had she gone on, she would have certainly, she was beginning to change her image around about the time of the Beatles. And she would have developed, I think, into a really very, very interesting, wonderful singer.
Well, I hope your hypochondria gets no worse.
Thank you.
And
I'll
thank you.
hobble off.
And thank you very much.
Thank
Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, Maureen Lipman.
Thank you.
Goodbye for now.